you're running late and this is the last shift before you're going to get fired. But then a neighbor drops their grocery bag and it's like, please. And you're just like, I don't like, figure it out. That kind of thing.
Everything is context dependent. And that's the most forgiving thing I can say about anything.
I don't know.
I guess such is that a good
transition to what we're talking about?
Oh, it might be actually.
Actually, it's extremely fitting, right? Because there's this sort of very hyper nuclear type of family, seemingly like they're so tight knit. They do this, they go on this escapade, but then they're each getting pulled away, and you learn more about their individual experiences. So like they have time to get that.
Everybody's got something else going on,
and you get to see it only when you there's some distance created. This is the Emily Nussbaum essay on Criterion, and she talks about them getting pulled into side. They're all going on side quests, basically. Yeah, but that helps it sort of individual. They have these individual discoveries only when they're able to kind of break from that unit, I think.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, Chelsea.
Yeah, hey, Victoria.
You know what I could use?
What?
A breath of fresh movie.
Me too.
All right.
That's a movie I like to see.
Hi, everyone. This is a breath of fresh movie. We're back. It's a weekly podcast, yes. Each week, we watch a movie neither one of us has ever seen, and then we talk about it.
Yeah.
The we in that sentence is me, Victoria Harley.
And I'm Chelsea Poe.
This opening is going terribly.
No, I you know what?
A little stumble's good. I'm going to just stick with that. Each week, we also talk about, anything related to this movie or the actors.
Ahoy.
Yes, exactly.
Ding, ding.
We don't talk about everything, but we will talk about anything.
Yeah. But I guess so then... We've been trying to sort of implement this sort of, is this better to go in?
Oh, yeah, checkpoint Chelsea. Yeah.
The spoilers. I think this is one where it doesn't matter that. I actually benefited. I'll say this is a movie that first time viewing and then discovering these things organically, I wasn't fully on board. But knowing the story and the full scope of it, this is one of the... I'm bad. I don't watch all of the movies we do twice. I barely get through some of them once. But this is one I actually somehow watched twice and enjoyed the second time more.
Oh, good. Oh, we're talking about the Daytrippers. The only thing I knew about this was it's kind of like an indie movie, and it's sort of set right after Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
and we are right after Thanksgiving, and it felt like, all right, we'll do this one. But I really didn't know anything about it either.
Same. The thing is that I saw what you sent me, and then I saw that you see Parker posing, and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's kind of
that great eyeshadow.
There's an expectation of there's a certain texture and flavor of Parker posing 90s movie.
No, I mean,
there's a certain tonally this didn't feel too different from what I did expect.
Yeah,
but I think the story became
the story was more surprising,
a little more left turny than I expected.
I think surprises are good. Shocking people is not hard, but surprising people is.
Yeah, and
there were a lot of things I didn't expect, and that it was a fun surprise, like finding out. Well, okay, so we're. Just to bring anyone up to speed.
This is what the movie is.
Yeah, here's what the movie is basically about. When Eliza discovers a love letter written to her husband by an unknown paramour, the distraught woman turns to her tight-knit Long Island family for advice. There was something really delightful about, she shows up after she discovers this letter. She shows up at the house, and it's like, I got to talk to Mom. Well, that makes sense. But it's amazing how quickly this letter and the problem is opened up to the entire family for discussion.
Right.
They all happen to be there because it was Thanksgiving, and so her sister and her boyfriend are staying there and pretending like they don't smash even though they're in separate bedrooms, and stuff like that. Anyway, that sudden transition to we need to get other people to read it, or I can't remember what the line is that brings it into it, but it's like it goes from it being a one-on-one conversation to Carl, who's Parker Posey's boyfriend, reading the letter aloud, and they're all trying to analyze what it means.
And it gives it a certain flavor, I think, of what kind of movie it's going to be initially.
Yes.
And then this becomes a lot more hyper serious and grounded towards the end. You think that this broad dynamic, it kind of reminded me of like Little Miss Sunshine.
Oh, totally.
Where these very sort of broad behaviors that we accept and love about our family members, sure, they get into their tiffs, but ultimately like the reinforcement of that unit as being wholesome and like inextricably linked is like, it's validated by the end of Little Miss Sunshine, where I think like the very opposite, and what made me appreciate it more on the second viewing, because that first, when we had last talked, I had only watched it the one time through, and again I only kind of half paid attention. I thought it was just going to be sort of this quippy little comedy that's like not as tight and goofy as I'd be just like, oh, I'd rather be watching Parker Posey in a Christopher Guest movie right now.
Sure.
You know, but then also I think like the context of it being in the 90s and coming out in 96, I think that setting of New York and that time point, and I was able to appreciate that more, and the message of it being almost sort of like questioning the where boundaries should start and stop in relationships.
Yes.
You know,
Totally.
like the whole, her would-be brother-in-law's reading this
very
letter of
personal.
infidelity. It's very personal. You think, oh, it's going to be one of those kinds of quirky families.
Yeah,
it's like towards, as the movie progresses, and then it takes that sharp turn midway through, and it's like, oh, no, this feels more about a movie that's questioning, you know,
well, I feel like
a lot of that.
Eliza, who's played by Hope Davis, like her anger takes a while to bubble up.
She keeps having to refer to other people. I feel like she's a very
like she really doesn't want this thing to be true or what she thinks it is. Like she's the one who's
she's
resisting
seeking everyone else's counsel.
Yeah,
she's kind of, it almost feels like she's going along emotions, and then that's when it's like the dad who's been quiet the whole time, and he's actually the one that's like, what do you want to do?
Oh yeah, I love that moment, you know, so much. And him,
and it's like the movie, it's like this, both the sisters are like finding agency, as opposed to doing what they've, you know, what
they've been taught to do.
They're trying to be good. They're really, both of them, the whole, like, it seems like they're trying to be good, and then Parker, you start with her own subplot. I feel like we're seeing two different styles of people who've questioned their comfortable setup, and then they're like, oh, I'm not fulfilled. This is not. Yeah,
I'm not sure about this.
This is not working for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a moment where and Parker Posey's character is Joe. There's a moment where Joe is sitting beside Carl, but is sort of leaning back while he's leaning forward, and you do see a moment where she kind of sneers at him, and you realize that like she's kind of sick of this like blowhard. She has
a very, like, I feel like one of the most it's not as transparent, I guess, in a way as Carl's, but like she has a very visual arc, like with her, the way her face shifts between, like, she's
the layers of her clothing, like the way she's
taking off the layers, and it's like it starts with her being so hyper fixated on Carl. She's always kind of looking to him. Then it's like you start noticing her looking around away and sort of trying to, like, well, I mean, she gets the ick.
Yeah, and I before she goes into that first party, I mean, she doesn't even know that she's gonna like meet somebody, but she strips off all of those layers. It's like, I'm not going to go into this party not looking good.
Right.
Like, I am not dead. But it's kind of funny because like those clothes were her kind of twinning with him. So it's like, oh wow, like, you know, you're really like, I don't want anyone to see me the way that I've been all day.
Yeah.
And she just has some weird, crazy ass layers going on.
And like, I love her way of like, she knows exactly what to say to him in that moment in the hallway when she's doing all that. She's like, oh God, I hope Newman isn't here. And he immediately goes inward and is worried about himself again.
Yeah.
And it's about the ego and the books, because she knows that's like that's a bigger agenda, is his ego and desire to get published, and he's like always pitching his book. And so as soon as she's like, oh, I hope this important literary person, you know, and he's like, oh, so he starts adjusting himself, like, oh God, I don't, is he gonna be there?
Right.
And she's like, yeah, this is the ick, like, in her mind.
I don't like this.
And that's how she's able to kind of, she schisms him because he goes on that spiral in that party. And,
very quickly.
you know.
And although Carl, like he's kind of annoying and he sort of deserves it in a way, but at the same time, it's like he loses like an argument and his girlfriend.
Yeah,
and he
has like the worst that's the worst like 15 minutes of his life so far.
And his like the former teacher that he had.
That was so devastating, right? That I feel like once that happened, I felt
bad for him at that point.
It's turned into like this, like the whole Coen brothers, a serious man, and it's just like, wow, it's just raining indoors for this guy right now.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's, and that it is a private devastation. You know, it's just him and this guy getting into the cab and just, you know.
Yeah, it's like, it's one of those those dark comedy things, or dramedy things where I'm like, what if the movie was just about this guy and starring Ben Stiller? I would have too much cringe to get through it. But it's like its own genre, right? Is seeing a guy who is this sort of, he's a little self-involved but neurotic, and then just has all of these horrible things happening to him. It's just,
no, I mean, everybody's drawn with empathy.
Yeah,
you know? I mean, Anne Mara, I just felt like was such a scene stealer. Like, she was so funny. I mean, even from the beginning where, like, should we get them up?
Was
like,
she just born looking that way and being that archetype? Because I just feel like she hasn't changed in appearance for 20 years or more.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good role for her. Perfect role. But I love the parents making all that noise in the morning. And like thinking
such a classic.
And just like, oh, should we get them up? And it's like, of course, they're already up. Like, you have made so much noise. Like, that's classic. And then, and even just the throwaway, like, well, they should get up if they want to get into the city sometime today. Like,
it's like that self-awareness, but not enough to like you.
So much judgment, like buried in all of that. I thought that was funny. Like I said, I liked the switch to where suddenly they're becoming little private detectives together, and they're all in the car together. And I mean, the reason, like, oh, why are they even going into the city together? I love this line so much. It's very easy to lie on the phone.
Yeah.
Like, her mother is so much about, we need to go and find out.
She's a micromanager. Yeah. And this is going to be a thing that, for me, and I was not alone in this, it's cute, it's iconic, and then it gets to the point where you're just like, oh, fuck, God. I get why Parker Posey's fucking yelling at her to
leave her
shut
alone
up and go away. Like, it becomes to a fault. But at the beginning, just like, I mean, she's the catalyst of this whole thing.
She is. And she has
to resolve it. She's the one, she's trying to manage. She's trying to be like the matchmaker. I think she sees herself as like the protagonist of the matchmaker. That's like, I'm going to put these people together. I'm going to put this is how it should be, you know?
Yeah. No, she really is invested in Carl and Joe, and thinks Carl is such a nice young man.
It's almost like, oh, do you guys want to fuck?
No, that's just it. They're having this weird flirtation the whole time because she's indulging him and he needs to be indulged. And it's, and you're right.
She's so taken by him.
Oh, it thinks he's so smart. And so even just like, and then just the general like politeness of when you're trying to show your daughter's boyfriend that you like him, you know? I mean, like, Carl, you're so tall. Do you want to sit in the front? Like, it just...
It's cute, and then it's like,
but then
Jesus Christ, Mom. Like I grew to empathize more with the daughters the second time around, where the first time I didn't. I couldn't quite engage or figure it out, and that's like at first I'm stuck in the she's gonna cheat on him, and then like she's just kind of standing there that woman's like messing with her hair, like for both each of the daughters. I was I had cringe against them the first time, and then more empathy and like understanding
I think
the second time.
Eliza or Hope Davis, like her unwillingness to like no, there has to be some other thing, or I need other people to weigh in, and then when it actually comes down to it, it's like you don't want to weigh in. I mean, the whole, because the whole, discovery of the infidelity and the confirmation, and then this extra layer of like, oh, it's not a woman, and there's this moment where her mother is so, Rita, she's trying to take charge of the whole situation,
right.
And trying to tell him who he is and telling her to get in the car. And I remember in that moment thinking, God, that would be like the last thing I would want is to get in the car and have to drive back with my family for an hour plus to, Long Island. Like,
yeah,
fuck no. Even in this betrayal, I'd rather talk to the man who this all concerns, like, I was so glad that
she's not stuck in that echo chamber. It's not even her own echoes is the thing, she's like,
I haven't even had a chance to speak today.
That's the thing is I appreciated this more about her character's journey. At first I felt like she was suffering from a little bit of that, it's like, Hey Arnold, where it's like interesting things happen to them, or they're the protagonist is that character's not exactly carrying the story ever. They're only ever like receiving.
Yeah.
And I got that vibe from her, but then it's like, that moment actually when that weird neighbor lady, those neighbor ladies that she's helping, not neighbor lady, but women,
the two sisters who are going through their like mother's apartment,
and she's on that side quest, and that's like this woman like fusses with her hair, she lets her, and it's like, I felt I was so like kind of cringed on her for a second, and then I was like, oh, this is how just internalized this sort of nice girlness she's been raised to be. Like she's such a good, like she's letting this person do this to her before she's exactly that's the word. She's just
which I mean even
so passive or submissive, I guess.
Which also kind of explains how she could wind up with somebody like who is perhaps closeted and needs somebody who is not going to be anything other than, accommodating,
because he I mean, so like I'm hearing that message she hears on the phone of him not coming home or like whatever. There's already so many allowances she's given him without really thinking twice about it.
Right.
Like, he just needs this. She grants him so much space. And
like when she sees him at the party and he's dancing, she's actually sort of enjoying seeing him.
She didn't even pounce on him right away. It's almost like, wow, he's letting me see him.
She loves him.
Yeah.
She loves him.
Makes it very sad, but also
painful.
Thinking even, I'm jumping ahead to say tipping my hat on my personal supporting already is Marcia Gay Harden, because her cameo,
my God.
That was another moment of like,
it was so great and sad. Also,
but of hope too, being able of her letting somebody take her in a way, because she could have pushed it. This I felt like that was the most extreme example they could give that could really show how
strange woman at a party,
how nice and accommodating, I guess, that she would be, and also so easily like submissive. Yeah. I don't mean this in a condescending way to the character. I think she literally is just like too nice of a person to pull away from this. I think this drunk woman, and then they end up relating, and it's actually a really poignant scene. It's really well acted.
Yeah,
but she's at the party her husband's at. She like knows he's there too, but she takes the time to be this other lady.
Yeah. No, you're right. It is like. And maybe submissive is too negative.
It sounds like it's implying that I don't.
Yeah, I don't.
Think
she has strength. It's just that I think she's accommodating. I think she's a very kind person. But when you look at the way, because we come to understand like the way her mother raised both her daughters to believe they need a strong, intelligent man.
Yeah.
Everything is resting on that assumption, It's why
she probably comes from an endearing, like a good place. She doesn't want to,
of course,
make it. She wants to protect them from whatever mistakes pitfalls she's fallen.
But it's like they were raised with a morality that was older than the morality you're raised with, and you know what I mean. Yeah. It's like everything is always a little bit behind, unless you have a remarkably, thoughtful and empathetic, set of parents, or something who understand, like.
I feel like, she's like a stage mom, but about marriage.
Yeah, a little bit.
And like, there's maybe this contempt she has of her husband that you really see come out at the end, because she sees him as so passive and like on it. Yeah. Like she has to do all this. Why aren't you doing more? And it's like, well,
he's like,
what can I? What can?
Also,
what
he
can I
drove
do?
them into the city. I
Yeah,
mean,
like
know,
it's I don't know. It reminded me of my aunt and uncle a little bit because that when I was growing up seeing that, I saw a lot of that type of dynamic. She's much more headstrong and like even like their kids, my cousins would like put down their uncle, like their father, like for being just sort of this passive provider. Like it was really sad, actually.
I think, there was something.
Not that my family situation was anything to look down on anyone else's.
No, but you know the side quest of because what happens is she's so upset at him. They go on the world's shortest car chase. She gets out of the car and is running down the street, and then she's so mad. She's screaming like something about like, why haven't you doing anything? You have to do something. Yeah. But then like she's passing out, and immediately it's like, don't go into the light, and it becomes kind of a joke. But then that gets them into this apartment, right? Because the guy on the street who helps them, and I love how the father and then that guy whose apartment happened to be there are dressed almost exactly the same. And at one point, there's a 2-shot of them sitting beside each other with the same posture. Yeah. They're the same, like, silent witnesses to their family's mess, you know? And that guy's father, seems like a nice guy, but then we find out, oh, no, he's actually, like, an outlaw, kind of, because he hasn't been paying child.
Yeah, he's a deadbeat.
He's a deadbeat, yeah. And
he's a louse.
But his son is allowing him to have this kind of moment where he gets to pretend to not be that.
Yeah. I think it is a good, again, I feel like every character has a moment where you see them removed enough from the rest of the family to get like a real taste of, what's this person's inner world like? And that's a good one for the father, the patriarch of this whole thing. It's wordless, but it's
I mean, he's kind of my best supporting player simply because it's so few lines. And
he has one of the best moments just asking his daughter,
what does she want to do? Yeah. No, it's like, thank you, Dad. I just wanted to throw out the one more great line from Rita was the way she's sort of updating them about all the gossip in the area. And one of them is like, he was having an affair with a 10th grader. An affair, it's not the word I would use.
Again, it's very of its time.
Oh, yeah.
That's as far as some of the conversation topics and...
But these things always happen, is the point.
Even the treatment of the about face of the plot, I think... I don't know. A lot of this sort of reminded me of like the first half of the first season of Sex and the City, where there are certain things that, you're watching it from a 2022 lens. It's not It's not the most evolved, but it's also a sign of the times, and it's like people
You're right.
Dealing with these fissions in their relationships. And I don't know, there's a certain, and also just the texture, I think, both in how they're filmed and how New York it appears.
It is such a, no, you're right. I didn't think about that as having that vibe, but it does.
The first 2 to 3 episodes of Sex and the City.
Yeah, because
it's almost like I'm nostalgic for that flavor.
Those definitely were filmed like in sort of like an independent film in a way.
I guess just, pre 9/11 New York, to hypersimplify it. I don't know.
No, I get you.
But it's more than that. It's like you just said.
Yeah. It has but like the city is definitely part of the texture, and it was like at that time, where like, you'd catch a glimpse of the World Trade Center in the background that would kind of like position you of like where they must be here on the island or here in relation to that, and
just how the city's shot. And it's a cliche to say, the city is like its own character, but
it is.
This time in New York, is 96. This came out.
I mean, I was watching a sort of, it's not really a horror movie, but I was watching Walkabout, which is like a Nick Rogue movie about. It was good, but very much like a Nick Rogue type movie.
I don't know what that means, but I respect it.
It's
like when my dad said that when I was like 11, I asked him how some John Woo movie had come out, and he was like, "It's very John Woo-y." And I was like, "Dad,
that doesn't help.
I'm 11. Jesus Christ!
I need you to put it together for me." Like he does a lot of movies that just are sort of unsettling, and they'll often have certain cuts of certain footage will be like chopped in in pauses during scenes or something. Like in this particular case, I mean, they're also like dark, but observed in a very clinical sort of way. Not what we're talking about. There's a couple of moments I really love. One is we talked about the party, but there's this great shot. It's something that feels very, I don't know, kind of New York to me. It's just in the party, there was this shot where it was like going across all the heads, you know, like it was very much point of view.
Yeah.
And it was so, the tension of it was so great because I found myself searching for his face as well.
Oh, yeah, when she's finally going onto the rooftop there.
Exactly.
That whole sequence has a very...
So good. But I felt the sort of, not claustrophobia, but the tightness of spaces. Like what you were saying about like Sex and the City. And I'll talk about a little bit more about this later, but all the locations in this movie, it's insides of apartments, insides of cars. Mm-hmm. And just think about that kind of life, you know, that feels more authentic somehow. Like kind of anyone can sit down in a restaurant, but parties are kind of...
I don't know. It's especially 90s, you know. And but you also really, all the more reason, again, watching this a second time and really imagining being in the tedium of a car and you have no smartphone you're retreating into, and these are the personalities you're with in the station wagon.
To listen to this guy describe his novel.
You got to listen to your boyfriend, possible fiance, go into explaining again this it's adult Dr. Seuss. Or Dr. Seuss for adults. The Joe
the way she
Parker tries to do it. Like she has to I like how she has to explain his pedantic, even when he's first reading that poem and then the mom asks the questions or whatever, and he's explaining what the poem is, but he's so like he's just so pretentious about it.
He's very pretentious.
He uses so many 50-cent words, and then the daughter, and then Parker has to be like, so it's like
like she's actually the smarter one.
She's almost like his translator. And it's nice you say that. like she's smarter, or she's certainly smarter than her mom is even giving her credit for, because then when the mom is saying, my daughter, she's being an idiot, stupid, or whatever, right after she broke up with him. Foolish girl. And he's like, no,
she really isn't. She's really not.
Yeah.
Because he even gets it. Because he's kind of also, although I feel for him, I think he's
had an ego death of
incredible.
The most massive ego death you can have.
Which is what kind of
makes... sober.
Which, like, also kind of makes it all the more sign of, like, growth and like, dude, you know, He stays with the parents, right, at the end, and like
so self-aware, and he's like bore them with
he's like,
chapter.
He's like, I know no one wants to hear, you know, extreme ego death.
So much humility.
It was like the equivalent of him taking a bunch of acid or something, and just
so he had like the most transparent arc then, I'd say, which is why I was like, I think Parker, it's like a lot of it is facial. You know, she doesn't spell out everything she's feeling. No,
you have to really look at her face.
But she's also that's why she's so good at comedy, is that her face is very readable.
Yeah.
And then with Leave, it's like his character,
Carl.
Yeah, I just feel like his is so... It's almost like his story, and it's like even when we saw, like when I first saw the main still that's used is the back seat with the three of them. And it's really more of a story about the daughters, but it's almost he's like he's a big part of that.
He's a big presence in the vehicle and in the
huge
car,
presence in the
he
story.
Probably has like the most lines.
He's really a co-lead because his arc is so like apparent. Like that we spend a lot of time, like that party sequence is so.
And I must say that I think the arc of what happens to them felt to him and Joe, it felt very relatable, real, and just this shit happens every day.
It was a very realistic depiction of what that frustration and like actual infidelity would look.
It was also a really great way to distract us from Liza's husband is cheating on her with a woman.
Yeah,
it's just assumed, you know, or maybe it's just
right.
Me and my straight brain. But
but it is sort of an about face that I think people have mixed reactions to, that I noticed in the reviews. It's like you either it being of its time.
I feel like there've been a couple of films even past this that were
absolutely
where that's the twist.
But I think
that's like, and I don't want to say like, oh, it's been done, or oh, you can't do that. No, it's a straightforward kind of a story.
Yeah,
it's like it's about infidelity. but it turns out you know less than you think. You know,
Yeah.
it's a bigger, and in that sense, it feels like a bigger infidelity. It's not about like, ew, gross, gay. You know,
and I think it's people being too surface in their analysis, in my opinion. Not in all cases, maybe. It was just like, without thinking about one, sort of what the greater purpose of it is.
Yeah.
And then also two, again, this is 90s New York, and this preceded more of those stories that would later unfold.
That would give it more nuance. I mean, I feel like Stanley Tucci, they were lucky to get him, and I think he is very believable in this. Like, it's very plausible. I don't doubt it for a second, but he very quickly becomes a villain in the way he's like, you have to help me, like,
it was really well done. Like, it's like, oh, I could see why she would be, up to this point, she would get suckered into like, how many other conversations have happened where he's gotten away with that kind of behavior that's honestly manipulative for him to be like, oh, you have to help me. Yeah. But him to do that and to confidently sort of just jump into that.
Yeah.
As if it's like, if she would just do it. Because she's so accommodating. She's so helpful. And if he angles it as this sort of thing that where he's in need of her like that, then that's just going to make it, and at that, I've been in codependent relationships. I've absolutely fallen victim to that about face in an argument where it's like, oh, what they're doing is that falling on the sword thing, where then they're suddenly like helpless and like the turtle that fell on its back and you gotta help, like
like I can't do this without you.
I can't. Oh man, well, sorry, I cheated because I love you and I'm insecure and I don't know how to. You have to help me. You have to help me do this.
You have to help
me be a better man.
Yeah.
Oh my god. I'm sorry. I drink because I don't know how to love you sober. Like, shit like that. Man.
I mean, I think it's also just funny, like, if you consider there's the continuity of the story and how she spent all day just like watching her mother needle her sister about her relationship and being involved in her. She spent all day being accommodating, basically. Like, and that mom
would have driven me so crazy.
Well, and she does say something about like, she's making me crazy. You know? The fact that he took it to that depth of like, you have to help me. And that she's like, no, I don't. She finally like hit whatever threshold or was just tired enough in that moment.
I finally felt like if it was a Venn diagram between that character and the audience, or like myself as the audience, that's finally when they like unified.
Yeah.
Like Peter Pan and its shadow finally got tethered together again.
Yeah. And I mean, we talked about it a little bit at Thanksgiving, but it was like, oh, the ending sort of implies that the story has been more about the sisters this whole time, because they walk away together. And there is something very... Again, it's an ending.
Because it caught me off guard and made me like it less. And again, I saw other reviews that were like, oh, this ending just kind of ends. And oh, that was not...
It's like, did it stick the landing?
It did, yeah. But then it's like, oh, then I rewatch and I see how it builds to that. It's like, I had to know what the ending was to better see what the story was actually like, to better pay attention to the sisters. I feel like all these other side characters almost take up more of your brain and more of your energy and focus, or mine at least, certainly. I'm fixated on all these other quirky characters, not realizing that the sisters are like the actual like tethering protagonists, I guess. Like they're the real book ends. Those two, you see that they're both of their relationships, and first thing we see is Stanley Tucci and Hope. Then we cut to the house and we cut straight to Parker Posey and Lee Schreiber in bed. So then it's like, oh, that's what it is. We're starting with seeing these two sister couples, and we're going to end with these two.
It is parallel. You're right.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on that initially, so that's why
I don't need everything to be wrapped up perfectly in a neat little package.
Sure.
In fact, I tend to not like that. It kind of felt just like but it did feel a little bit like, oh, we need an ending,
Yeah,
and I mean, not that like two sisters like kind of just being like, wow, both our shits are fucked up, but we got this whole city. I mean, not that that's like the literal thought, but just like, I brought up Walkabout earlier because I was thinking about how that's all taking place, in a desert. But in its own way, Manhattan is kind of a desert, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, although you are surrounded by people and buildings and stuff, it's often still just the community of who is in the car with you, or who you're on the street with, or who you at a party with, who you're having lunch with.
Who are you
like,
opposite of?
Yeah, and so it kind of felt, I don't know, like it reminded me that the setting was Manhattan. That was mostly what that ending did for me. It was like, all right, the city.
Mm-hmm. I do want to say,
please,
you talking about who you're surrounded by.
Yeah.
I now, again, I'm going to play the game of take a shot after every time Chelsea says she watched this twice, because she's so proud of herself for it. No, but
that's okay.
Seeing the ending of the two sisters, walking off at first time watching it, I'm like, okay, I guess we're just what? But then rewatching it and seeing how many of the shots are so close up of them, and how like kind of in their faces we are.
Yeah.
And if you can imagine us audience members as like this invisible member of the family, or that point of view, us being left on the street while they walk off, and then not getting just them. We're almost. I feel like I'm one of I've been one of these family members that has been sort of like
left behind,
I'm in their business, I'm in their shit. And now they're walking, like that's the end of the story, where they're walking away. First things we see of them are like these two very intimate moments of them. We're not giving. They're taking their agency, and they're creating space by walking away from us, and we just have to watch them walk away.
I like that. I like the camera as like another member of the family. And you're right. This is incredible.
I just thought about that right now, talking about
genius.
It's from what you
genius
just said.
Thoughts.
It's from what you said.
Well, I the fact that we're so close in their face, and like we're so in there with them. I think
and it feels claustrophobic, because that word comes up.
Or intimate, depending on how you feel about that closeness.
And now they're just saying no. They're setting a boundary.
Yeah. No, it's true. Like a visual, physical boundary. No, it's interesting. I do have some notes about the production, because they're pretty interesting, actually. It made me a little bit more appreciative of it. The mid-'90s, it's like independent cinema is happening. It is like New Line, Miramax are both intensely interested in finding interesting stories.
There are real pipelines.
Oh, they
still
are
accessible pipelines. This being an example of that.
And Sundance was a big marketplace for this kind of thing. So much so that it spawned Slam Dance, the parody. I mean, this is kind of a high watermark. Let's see if we can get a big profit off a small budget movie. Trainspotting was made for $3 or $4 million. Worldwide, it grossed $78 million or something.
That did really well.
That's over the course of maybe a year.
But even still,
it made its fucking money back.
Because it does feel so. Just the texture of those movies, that 90s.
Oh, I love Trainspotting. I mean, it's a rough one, but
it's a rough wash. But it's got some nice stylistic goods. The soundtrack's good.
The soundtrack kicks ass.
The energy, that sort of like intensely bitter, but like sometimes there's
a little
levity.
Bittersweet. Yeah. No, it's so good.
Oddly uplifting.
Oh yeah, but at this time, even though there is this pipeline and there's all these opportunities, just like any time, it's hard for a first-time filmmaker to get a bigger budget of, say $3 to $4 million. So I should mention that the director is Greg Mottola, and he had a different script that he was close to getting made. It's in pre-production, had the actor, blah blah blah, but just the money never came through. And this is, I'll talk a bit more about Mottola. And where he was in his career when he made this, but Steven Soderbergh and Nancy Tenenbaum basically were like, what can you make for not a lot of money? And they gave him about like $60K, and he raised a little bit more than that. Ended up shooting this thing for about $72,000, and then to finish all together it was $700,000. So very small budget movie. Actors were paid $100 a day, so all these people were definitely doing it for the love of the game.
Yeah.
Parker Posey, I guess, the part was written for her, which that's a good tip. It's harder
It's
to
very,
say.
yeah, I mean, it fits so well.
It's harder to say no to a project when someone's like, well, I wrote it for you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's hard to say no to.
And it's a great
good tactic.
Great role.
It's a great
for her,
part. Oh, fucking great. The locations, as I mentioned, were mostly inside a car, in apartments. The family home in Long Island was really the Mottola home in Long Island. So it's all real shit. And it all feels real, right?
Isn't that
That house is lived in.
I watch things. I feel like this is probably not fair of me to throw this movie under the bus, and it has its fans, and I really should finish it sometime. But I think of like King of Staten Island, and I'm like, or like certain like Silver Linings, or like different more recent movies that are set in that vicinity, in Long Island or in New York or Staten Island, whatever.
Yeah.
They're trying to capture a feel that I think this one actually achieves. You know?
I agree. Yeah. I think, it's funny.
It's like it's reaching for the past, but then it's almost too gloss. Like
yeah.
It's too.
No, exactly. It's too glossy. I mean, it's
too caricature. It feels too caricature.
Everybody's
to indicate
well.
Too much.
It's like there's a
Trainwreck's another example.
Yeah, there's a simple lived-in quality to this home. That they're using as their location. That. It looks like a normal ass house, but now that's such an unfamiliar concept to people who do. I don't want to say like all people who do production design, because they do great work, but this is a tangent. But I remember Tim and Eric talking about how hard it was for them. They would want, okay, we need T-shirts, we need this, and people would come back with American Apparel versions of what they asked for.
I totally know what you're saying.
And so they were like, no, we need it to be normal, like normal clothes,
it's like.
And
relating to that, like thinking about movies that revolve around families now, I think, or even just from the going into like the 2000s forward, this movie Daytrippers feels special because it's capturing a certain class and texture that like, I don't know, I'm just thinking of all the Diane Keaton mom movies, right? Because I said so. Or thinking about like the family stunts. All the family issues are in like a big house.
It's
and
always
kind of
beautiful house.
Even August Osage County or what I think about stuff like that. I'm like, there's almost class divide that
totally
class shift. Like they don't want us to see, or they almost can't seem to even relate the story to a more realistic.
It feels like the fantasy element has infiltrated everything in that it's. Every family is presumably rich, I guess.
Everybody's like very upper middle class.
Yeah, even though that does not fucking exist anymore.
Everybody is even in Daytrippers, yes, that has like you have the one daughter but they're very steadfastly, even though the daughter is married to this publisher. So it's almost like they get a glimpse, but they are still kind of outsiders to this upper crusty kind of world, and it's almost like. It's almost like Stanley Tucci's character counts on the fact that his wife is intimidated by, I think, his work.
And maybe a little bit naive.
A little naive to it. So she doesn't navigate all that because it's whatever. But then so many of these other family movies, everybody's in a fucking white turtleneck. And
I hear you. I mean, all the like comedies and things. Even
it's Knives Out family, but a little less murdery.
Yeah, and I don't want to say like that always is a problem, because I'm thinking about like National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. I always thought that was a gorgeous house. I mean, it has that huge stairway. I mean, it's like...
Or Planes, Trains, Automobiles, Home Alone.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody's got these beautiful, like, not McMansion, but that specific...
gorgeous, like, Evanston home.
Crunchy front yard.
Yeah,
because of all the beautiful trees.
And we saw a deer in the backyard this morning.
Oh, yeah, we saw a deer. No, I know.
That was it.
Yeah, that's great.
I got to talk about this movie a little bit more. On the first day of shooting, this is a really bad omen. Their camera, which was a Super 16 millimeter camera, was stolen. $35,000 camera.
It's like this guy made this movie happen.
I mean, like I wouldn't kill myself, but I would think about it.
You know, I kudos to this project getting finished. And there were a couple of moments too I noticed in the car with Parker Posey getting ADR'd.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And there were things like that where I
I
felt appreciation for the movie being as competently put together as it is, in spite of some of these hiccups, and that it would be something that's on the Criterion in spite of these technical, I don't know. I've made shit where the sound is fucked up and needs little tweaks and stuff, and then it's easy to throw away or dismiss it.
Yeah.
Like its quality or worthiness because of these technical
There are mistakes
things.
all the time. I mean, at this point, do they put the Starbucks cup in the Game of Thrones shot.
They had to go back and, like, edit that out.
Did they do it on purpose to create a discussion? You know what I mean?
Yeah, well,
like,
it's
like all that Inception shit. Is
Elon Musk tanking Twitter on purpose? Is this all? Is everything a conspiracy?
Yeah.
Everything a conspiracy.
I wish. In some respects, I wish. I just have more. I assume it's stupid and not evil.
Like the incompetency.
Yeah, it's always stupid that kills you, not evil.
It's like,
well, not always, but often.
I didn't love Don't Look Up, but I like the moment when Jennifer Lawrence is like, I promise you, they're stupider than you think. Like they're not doing that. It's not as elaborate.
Of
a plan.
There is no big lie. It's like an indifferent stupidity. It's horrible.
The worst truth of all.
Yeah.
The harshest
No
reality.
one wants to. There's nobody at the wheel. There's nobody at the wheel, in case you were wondering. Nobody. So I don't know why, but this movie was rejected from Sundance. Apparently, it had a lot of trouble trying to get like screened and distributed. So, it was made for not a lot of money. They got it in the can, but then imagine
getting into Cannes, but then not Sundance, or is Cannes less challenging than Sundance?
I don't know. It got into Cannes later, but like it.
It's interesting that Sundance would be like, no, and then the Cannes Film Festival would be like, oh, you're nominated for a thing.
I'm not sure what went on. I just know that it was like a lengthy post-production process, which is typical of like indie movies. You get it all on. And that's the other thing. This was done on film. It was 60 millimeter film blown up to 35.
Yeah, I love the texture.
Which meant that, he spent money on film stock and actors.
Yeah.
That's pretty much
extremely
where all
bare bones.
Yeah, that's pretty much where all the money went. And I mean, I'm just thinking about today. Fuck. I mean, we don't have to pay for film stock anymore. Digital, you can be burning media all day. There's no risk. In some respects, it makes people lazier, I think, because there's less planning. When you don't
have to be precious about it. Whereas it's like every frame counts.
Yeah, and I mean, Mottola also was very much. We're not only are we going to film, cheaply, but I mean, like I'm going to write cheaply. We're not going to have any restaurant locations because when you film in a restaurant, right, they have to close and that loses business. So they want a location fee and they want money to replace the business they lost. So if you're going to write cheap, don't write any scenes in a restaurant. Just don't do it. Like, don't do it, or figure out a way to fake it, whatever. He was like, we're going to shoot fast, only a couple of takes. More rehearsal, but the actors understanding that know that they don't get a lot of chances and they can't be precious either. Right. They really have to just serve it up. And I think when you know that that's the expectation or that's how we're going to roll, and once people get the hang of it, shooting fast can be like amazing. And again, this was done in 17 days. He borrowed a lot of things, and I read an interview with him where he had the 9 rules of like cheap filmmaking.
Yeah.
One was be friendly in film school, write cheap, borrow locations, borrow other stuff, use cheap film stock, shoot fast, learn to live with a protracted post-production schedule, don't quit your day job, and get your mom to cook for the crew.
That should be framed and put on a wall. I love that set of rules.
I mean, he had a lot of explanations that extended from that. This is the abridged version.
I could totally see that, like, put like on a film student's like dorm room
Oh,
wall.
fuck yeah.
It's like the secrets to success or tools of writing, but then it's that list.
Yeah. No, totally.
It's extremely salient advice.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have reviews to share?
Yeah, I know we kind of already talked about them, but in terms of just like literal citation,
anything you want to share.
Yeah, just a couple. I think like on Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 73% tomatometer and then 74 audience. So it's one of the most even scores that we've had in terms of just its general
put it on the chart
reception. I don't know. I find that interesting because sometimes there's so much polarity or such a disparage between the audience and the critics. There's a lot of disagreement between it, the anti-intellectualism debate or what. Anyway, but Roger Ebert in 2000 reviewed it at 2 out of 4.
Oh wow!
And I'm calling it out because I liked and disliked what he said.
Okay.
And the snippet they used on the website is, I do not mean to criticize Mira herself. She is almost by definition superb at her assignment here, which is to create an insufferable mother. The film's problem is that she does it so well. And granted, I can see that my first viewing is too acerbic. I think it was harder to get through that. Some of that stuff was a little, it's like, where's this going? Yeah. And the second time through, I could see it in context a little better. That's and then as far as the gay twist at the end.
I love it. I love a gay
twist. Just a little gay twist. Matt Brunson from Film Frenzy, he'd given it a 2.5 out of 4.
Okay. And
he said the climactic twist is not only obvious but also registers as a stunt, and the ending is far too abrupt. Again, also talking about that ending where we're on the sidewalk. On the plus side, the performances are uniformly excellent.
Yeah.
But again, this is like things that I agree with, but also it benefited upon a second viewing to understand and appreciate it more.
I thought, I went back and looked at some scenes again. I didn't watch everything, but no, I think there's a lot going on here. It's a really rich movie. And this might sound silly, but I mean, getting the Criterion treatment, I think is lovely. I mean, quite honestly, it didn't have any money to go into any of it, at the time. Yeah. And I mean, this might sound like a kind of weird aesthetic thing to be hung up on, but frankly, like the poster is nothing special. And I don't know, there's something about the Criterion's edition.
That's absolutely one of the illustrators from the New Yorker. I'm surprised I didn't see that.
If it wasn't that, they're just mimicking it super well.
That has to be someone who's done New Yorker cover art.
It
looked absolutely like multiple covers I've seen.
It's so joyful. It feels like
feel free to write in and tell us.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like a graphic novel cover. It feels like this is like. It definitely has a wackiness to it because they're all kind of spread out and running across. Right. But it also, if you know the film, it's like each person is kind of so well represented. I mean, Carl's at the back with 3 cups of tea. He's trying to balance.
I think it sets a good tone for it too because it's in that New Yorker style, and it sort of like helps, I guess, bring the point home that like, it's going to be humorous. Some of it's pretentious, but it's making fun of itself for that. Yeah. For that, it's
like it
encapsulates the tone really well, I think.
Yeah, I thought so too. It reminded me slightly of the animation style of Mission Hill. I don't know if you ever watched that.
I didn't, but
it's okay.
That's valid.
That's my time.
All good. I just wanted to share a couple of more candid letterbox ones. From Sean, 4 stars and a heart. The mid-90s were truly a golden age. No cell phones, no internet, a new Parker Posey movie every month.
Yep.
I liked that.
That's a good review.
Spencer, 3 stars. Did anyone else get a Holden Caulfield vibe from Liev Schreiber?
Absolutely.
4 stars. Okay, but what happened to the dog man in Carl's novel? Yeah, we never hear the end, do we?
We don't, no one needs to know.
I guess it didn't matter.
They wanted to know. But
it's an allegory, okay?
Yeah.
It allegories. It's a pointer who can't point.
Yeah.
Just in terms of other main highlights of feedback about the movie, and I didn't find as many reviews from women as dudes. I think that there was a little bit of a disparity in that ratio from what I was gathering, especially on Rotten Tomatoes. A lot more dudes than ladies.
Sure.
But then also a lot of, I shouldn't generalize, but like a number of the reviews, I mean, at this point, Letterboxd is so many of the reviews are like shitposty.
They're very shitposty.
So I like to read a couple of them because some of them are good and concise, but then some of them I like some of the humor. But a lot of the reviews for this movie, if they're saying anything, it's just they're just like thirst tweets for Parker Posey or Liev, pretty much. Wow. Just or like everybody's just Parker Posey eyeshadow slay, like just shit like that. Or I'm just like, okay, some of it's funny, but then it's like at a certain point, like doesn't that type of joke get a little I don't know. No, I'm not good at it. That's why I hate it.
No, but that may be why you hate it. But I know what you're saying.
I don't know. I have an appreciation for the one line.
Brevity is the soul of wit.
The brevity that isn't just like
a shitty.
Oh my
brevity.
God, am I gay for Parker Posey? Or like just like OMG slay.
Those are just like not. They're not insightful.
It just starts getting a little flavorless after a while.
It's a post about yourself.
I think a year ago I was still a fan of. I could still consume that kind of tweet humor all the time. I was caught up in it. Yeah, I wanted it.
No more.
Now I think I'm so...
No. Yeah, most of the reviews are, I don't get this movie, but she's super hot.
Yeah, and that's fine. I don't,
it's fine.
I'll be, I did that shit with the White Worm. I did that shit with fucking Death Becomes. I mean, that's
fine.
We do it.
It's fine. I mean, I don't even think that was like a bad reaction. It was just,
it just is so analyze how you want to analyze. I'm not here to gatekeep whatever you want to, whatever your Letterboxd reviews want to. I'm just saying.
Slam that gate shut.
I'm just saying, like, at a certain point when I'm looking for these every week for whatever movie, and no matter what. Yeah. Some of the top liked ones are always, some of the very first ones are always going to be whoever is the best looking person in that movie or the most like sexy person in that movie. It's going to be like thirst tweet
Surprised
type
there
reviews
wasn't
for those at the top of every fucking thing.
Always.
Every Harry Potter one is probably about like how their hairstyles made them look sexier as they're coming of age. You know, shit like that.
It's part of why we put...
No Country for Old Men. It's like, sugar hot though.
Yeah.
No.
Sugar daddy.
More like sugar dad. That's a good one, actually. If that's not our, I bet that's on
somebody's got
sugar. More like sugar daddy.
Call it. I fucking love that movie.
Heads or tails? Tails first.
What time?
Why not both?
Yeah. What time do you close?
For you, never.
Fun. We have fun here.
Yeah, dude.
I would love to talk about Greg Mottola, who's in our director's chair this week. He was born in July 1964 in Dix Hills, New York. I didn't find out what his parents did for a living, but he came from a Roman Catholic family of both Irish and Italian descent. Classic New York. At 7, his parents took him to see 2001: A Space Odyssey, a movie that you love. And his parents didn't like it.
Wow, I really see the influence in these movies.
His parents really didn't like it, but the film
funny.
made a big impact on little Greg.
I love the idea that he
7 years old.
His I'm thinking of him as someone like Carl, but then he's with these people. I didn't get it. I didn't like it. Like, imagine Carl.
He
with
is
parents.
Carl. Yeah.
His parents are like the ones in Daytrippers, and it's
maybe.
Like, I didn't understand it. Why are we seeing these monkeys?
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
That was ridiculous. What's with that big baby?
Space baby.
Space baby.
Yeah, well, he liked it, and
I don't like the way it looked at me. That's just what I thought.
Monkey's gonna give me a look. It's gonna get a look.
It's gonna give me a look. I'm just gonna get a look.
No worries. I couldn't find out much about his life between this screening of 2001 and college, but he attended the Carnegie Mellon School and got a BFA. It's also at this time that he got his first film job, and he was making zombie vomit for George Romero's Day of the Dead, which came out in 1985, and it's on Tubi, so you can watch it. Maybe you'll see some of Mottola's vomit. He spent a whole day helping the art department make vomit.
I was like, wait, he vomited?
Made zombie vomit. Yeah, I didn't
see some of Greg Mottola's vomit.
Yeah, some of his. Yeah, he made it like from scratch.
Wow,
no,
so authentic.
No, I'm sure it was a big vat of it in a Tupperware bin or something.
That's so fucking gross.
Sometime after that, he attended Columbia and got his MFA. And it's at that point he got connected to producers like Steven Soderbergh and Nancy Tenenbaum, who had produced Sex, Lies, and Videotape, which was another kind of like indie.
Oh, that's
budget.
like one of the big ones.
Yeah.
That's like one of the big 90s.
Yeah, so people were looking out for like, what's the next one of those? As I mentioned earlier, they largely the ones who financed the Daytrippers. But after he made the Daytrippers, he had this follow-up, and he had a film ready to go that was all about rehab called Life of the Party. But the studio killed it because there was another film being produced at the same time about rehab called 28 Days, and that had Sandra Bullock in it. Oh. And they didn't want them to compete. So
I wonder if that one could have been better, though.
I mean, you know it probably was. Come on.
28 Days is so, like, there's a lot to like. Like, I actually really like
So you've seen it?
I have seen it, but it is also... Funny you should bring that up because there's a certain flavor, a certain saccharine studio quality about even that.
Yeah.
I'm just sorry to shit on your if it's anyone's fave.
Well, I'm sure
there are things that are well done. It's well acted, but just I would have liked to have seen something crunchy like this movie, but like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think Greg would appreciate what you're saying because I think it was a very frustrating experience for him. He ended up going into TV directing for a little while, but really interesting stuff. He got connected with Judd Apatow. Really wanted to do Freaks and Geeks. Ended up doing some episodes.
He would have been great with Freaks and Geeks.
He ended up doing episodes of Undeclared, which was the sort of follow-up to Freaks and Geeks.
The college version.
Yeah, which did not last long either. Yeah. He also directed some episodes of Arrested Development, The Comeback, Cracking Up, The Newsroom, and most recently Dave. But
he's quite a resume.
he's done
a lot.
That's the TV stuff.
And that's all good stuff. Those are all good shows, good film. Like,
yeah, well, and then in 2007, jogging back a little bit, he was the one who directed Superbad,
which is it's a really fucking good movie.
Superbad,
you know, it's of its time in a sense, but like it's a classic it's still a classic.
It was written, by Seth Rogen and his writing partner when they were teenagers. They
nailed it. Like the style and the relationship.
And I read this in an interview, but Mottola himself said, like, we wanted to avoid that, like, sort of stupid teen comedy thing where, like, and then her top flies off, that, like, they didn't want there to be any female nudity. They wanted it to, like, if there's nudity, it'll be male, like, only. Which I'm like, hell yeah, dude.
I mean, so many dicks. There's so many hand-drawn dicks.
I'm just saying, like,
no, but
there's one night, at least.
It's nice, like, Mottola was not doing...
He wasn't trying to do Porky's.
He wasn't trying to do American Pie.
No.
He was trying to like with Daytrippers, it's this escapade that takes a course over. It reminds me, actually, Superbad reminds me a lot of like Can't Hardly Wait, but with a little more,
but better.
Yeah, but better. Although I do love Can't Hardly Wait. I got a soft spot for that one.
I have a soft spot for it because it was on TV a lot, and I was at the right age. It was for my. Whatever.
I felt cool when I watched it as a kid when it was usually a double feature with either 10 Things I Hate About You or or Jawbreaker.
Oh yeah, for sure. I had a big crush on Seth Green at the time because
he had that he's going around then, and then Austin Powers too, like he was.
Oh yeah, no, I was, and I watched a lot of Buffy.
Buffy. I forget about. I didn't really watch that much.
He was like sort of a teen, like he was definitely being pushed, as
he's funny cute.
Yeah, he was the funny cute. Anyway, but Superbad was high grossing, critically acclaimed. What's funny though is that in all the positive press about Superbad, Judd Apatow, executive producer, the actors are so great. Michael Cera and Jonah Hill, and and they all deserve the praise. But Greg Mottola's name is not really connected. It's not really connected to it at all. It's not brought up.
It's Judd Apatow. His name seems to eclipse,
and it's sort of meant to in the way that it means Greg Mottola gets to make Superbad because he wanted to do it. Like he had planned to do it many years before. They'd had a read through, and then these things get lost in development hell, and then years later, Apatow calls him up. I was like, "Do you still want to do it?" And he's like, "Yeah, fuck yes." And then here we are. He followed that up 2 years later with Adventureland.
Yeah.
Now, he said it was a lot easier to get the money for that.
Yeah.
But even that, he found a lot of challenge. It was a challenge to keep the script intact because, people were like, I don't think kids are going to want to see this period that they didn't live through, because it's set in the 80s.
I don't think that's fair
It's not fair or true at all. At all. We're fucking cosplaying the 80s constantly at this point.
No, wait, like, I love that shit. I mean, part of my joy watching stuff like Daytrippers is, like, there's that the nostalgic projection into a time that, I mean, I existed in the 90s, but I didn't live in that.
I know what you're saying.
I was a baby.
It's evidence. Like, early episodes of Seinfeld for me are like, I know this hit my eye when I was, like, 6,
Yeah, it's also like there is a little bit of a wish fulfillment.
Oh yeah, no,
vibe. It's like watching Mad Men a little bit. You can't help but romanticize aspects of it,
or Feud, or any one of those shows that is so well researched and like the production design is perfection, and people are like, I had those sheets, that kind of shit. But Adventureland, this is supposed to be about that first job you get that's shitty.
I'm not gonna lie. I know I just said all that. I haven't seen.
No, I haven't. We
could put it on the list.
We could put it on the list. I haven't seen it either, but I know it's about having. It's like that first shitty job experience, that summer crap job. Oh, but there's a beautiful girl. Is the whole kind of vague list.
Not. This won't earn me a lot of love, but Jesse Eisenberg.
He's the guy. Yeah.
I've always enjoyed. I've ended up enjoying him in everything I've watched. But he's not he's not someone that I'm like running to the theater to see.
I have to overcome
despite that.
It's the Social Network.
He's so good in that, you know.
He
Like
is,
I loved him getting nominated for that, but then simultaneously it's that projection.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I don't. It's not his fault, but
and imagining him when he's spazzing
that.
out like he's on Adderall playing Lex Luthor in the DC movie.
Yeah.
Oh wow. I don't know what he fucking says. I just in the trailers I'm just like, oh, this guy's a little freak.
Sort of got this like in the corner of his mouth, kind of. I don't know. No, I don't. I don't know. But
when he boops Amy Adams in the trailer for one of those fucking movies, Batman versus Superman, I think he boops her at one point, and I was like, "What the fuck am I watching? Are you do you wish you were the Joker right now?"
I think my brain just turned to popcorn hearing that. The only other thing I was going to say about Adventureland is just there was also some confusion from executives. Surprise, and then they give notes. They just want things to be better, but. Again, this is about like a shitty job. And he's like, I don't get it. If this kid wants to be a journalist, why doesn't he just, I don't know, go get an internship at the New Yorker or something? And it's like, because he's a working class kid from Pennsylvania who has no connections to anything in New York. Like, what do you mean go get it? Like, he was really, Mottola was kind of bothered by.
I really want us to watch this one. Let's put it on the list.
Okay, we'll put it on the list. Anyway, he has made some other films. Paul in 2011, Clear History, which was a made-for-TV movie in 2013, Keeping Up with the Joneses, 2016, and then most recently, Confess Fletch, which just came out.
Which is also one I would
put
watch.
on the list as well.
I would watch any of those.
Yeah, I mean, I think...
It's got John Hamm, who I'm just, you know...
Yeah, I like him.
I know about the college hazing stuff.
I heard about that too.
He's a little.
It's not great.
I worked a shift with a girl who waited on him one time. He's a little. He's not mean.
No,
but he likes his privacy.
Yeah,
I'll say that. But I also really enjoy. I've always enjoyed watching him and anything he does. Okay.
My best supporting player is Pat McNamara, who played the father.
Right.
That's my favorite.
Good choice.
Who is yours?
Oh, Marcia Gay Harden.
That's right. You said
it was a scene that is both times I watched it grabbed me because I liked. It's
a great role.
I liked how well she played that. There's like drunk but a little vulnerable but endearing. But I like when she turned and shouted and then apologized. It was so natural. I liked it. Where are you from? Because oh, I'm sorry, I don't know where you're from.
Yeah,
it was very just
Yeah, she was great.
And I think the last thing I just watched The Mist, so that was the last thing I'd seen her in. So this is a nice contrast between her doing this and then bitch slapping a guy and be like, "This came from God." The monsters came from God. Let them feed on his blood.
She has range. That's what you're telling me.
I
was going to say, would you watch this again? But we know that you would.
Oh, I did.
Because you did.
And I did.
And you did.
Yeah.
So thank you for listening.
Yeah.
You can email us at abreathoffreshmovie@gmail.com. Yeah.
We have pillows with lips on them if you want them.
Yeah, buy them up.
Buy them up. Hurry.
Yeah, they're going fast.